The last sips of the season's sweetness are drawn through the supple tongues of thirsty admirals and syrphids. Fuel for upcoming hibernation. All thanks to invaluable ivy flowers. But there's no time for snoozing yet, because it's time for Autumnwatch. Hello and welcome to Autumnwatch 2021.
I think Megs is going to help me out here because, Megs, I believe you're doing an underwater journey with some of your favourite animals.
They really are some of my favourite creatures on Earth. I get very excited talking about them. Now, when we think about our marine environment, often we don't give it enough credit for its biodiversity. But what would you say if I told you that there were actually 40 different species of shark that visit or are residents in UK waters? 40 different species, and they come in all different sizes and shapes. Now, there is one species that I have never been able to see. It's something I've always dreamt of seeing, and hopefully one day I will be able to. This is the spiny dogfish. Look at that. Look at the shimmer. I said I was going to bring some sparkle, didn't I? What a beautiful animal. They were one of the most common sharks around UK waters, but I have to say in the last 100 years, they've actually dropped by 95%. 95%. Now that's largely due to overfishing, but there are still some issues here in the UK going on. Have you ever heard of rock salmon? Well, actually, it's not a species whatsoever. In fact, it just doesn't exist at all. But you might see it if you go into your fish and chip shops. So I contacted Andrew Griffiths a few months ago because he released a paper with the University of Exeter where he took DNA analysis of rock salmon to figure out exactly what it is. Now, rock salmon is basically a label that could mean any type of shark. And the DNA analysis actually proved the majority of it was spiny dogfish. Now, it's really important to say that the spiny dogfish imports are coming in from America, where the populations are doing better. However, globally, spiny dogfish is still listed as vulnerable. So as consumers, we do really need to be careful about what we're buying. But the shores here on Mull are full of elasmobranchs, the families of sharks and rays. In fact, look at this. This was found just on the shores of Mull. This here is egg cases, better known as mermaid purses, in fact, because they do look a little bit like a mermaid's purse. Here we have a skate egg case, and here we have the egg case of the dogfish. Now, scientists in and around Western Scotland and Mull noticed something interesting going on because there were more numbers of spiny dogfish here than anywhere else. So what they decided to do was put on tags to 50 individuals. And what they found was that these individuals were travelling throughout the UK and even from Norway to Loch Etive. It's a 27-kilometre loch, 200 metres deep. And they were all, for some reason, heading there. Now, it's a sea loch, and what happens in a sea loch is when fresh water meets the marine environment, it creates this really unique ecosystem, and this runoff basically locks in warmth in the water basin. So the sharks were travelling there for a very specific reason, in order to keep warm when they were at their most vulnerable. It's a shark nursery. Pregnant sharks would go there, and they've got one of the longest gestation periods of any organism, 22 months. So females will make their way to this specific loch just actually behind me over here to give birth in safety. I mean, what about that? It's really hard for us with sharks to be able to understand their movements. Of course, a lot of them are deep sea, they move over great distances, so tagging can work for a while, but it doesn't work always for very long. So finding out where these nurseries are really important. We've lost about 70% of our sharks since 1970 globally. A huge, huge problem. But there is hope, because finding nurseries like this one tell us the areas in which we need to protect. So for the spiny dogfish, hopefully things can start looking up.